Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Welcome to Cineversary, a podcast that celebrates a milestone anniversary of a masterful work of cinema. Every month, we extend happy birthday wishes to a different film currently observing a joyous jubilee. We count that as anything from a 20th all the way up to a 100th anniversary. This is your devoted host, Eric Martin, creator of the Cineverse blog and moderator of the weekly Cineverse film discussion group. Hey, if you're just joining the party, we are ready to roll out the red carpet. And if you're a fixture on the guest list, no worries, we've already got your drink waiting. Alfred Hitchcock was known as the master of suspense, and for good reason. Time and again, he crafted riveting thrillers, often featuring big-name stars whose characters are involved in murder schemes, espionage, dark family secrets, and psychologically twisted crimes. But he could also deftly blend his signature brand of suspense with memorable romance. Perhaps his greatest pairing of these two elements, and for that matter his finest picture of the 1940s, was Notorious, starring Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant. In this installment, I'll be joined again by Kim Newman, the renowned UK critic and film scholar, esteemed journalist, and award-winning author of Nightmare Movies, A Critical History of the Horror Film. Kim and I, we're going to travel down to the wine cellar to uncork exactly what makes Notorious great, why this movie deserves kudos 80 years later, what makes this film different from other Hitchcock works, salient themes, and much, much more. Now, Notorious originally premiered on August 15, 1946, so we are technically a few months away from the actual 80th anniversary, but as is true of any given year on our show, we can't always align the birthday parties with the original release month. We happen to have a lot of big anniversaries jockeying for spots later this year, so no harm in celebrating a bit early, right? Okay, before we dive into my conversation with Kim, let's take a moment and learn more about the making of Notorious, shall we? Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the 1946 spy noir Notorious centers on a high-stakes espionage triangle involving Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman, and Claude Rains. Set in post-war Rio de Janeiro, the plot follows U.S. agent T.R. Devlin, played by Grant, as he recruits Alicia Huberman, portrayed by Bergman, the daughter of a German traitor, to infiltrate a Nazi circle. The mission takes a dark personal turn when Devlin must watch the woman he loves seduce their target, Alexander Sebastian, played by Rains. The movie also features Leopoldine Constantin as Sebastian's formidable mother and Louis Calhern as Devlin and Alicia's spy boss. Although originally developed under David O. Selznick, the project was ultimately sold to RKO, allowing Hitchcock to take the reins as producer. When it premiered in August 1946, it solidified Hitchcock's signature possessive directorial style, even as he managed the film's executive logistics behind the scenes. It was back in August 1944 when Hitchcock began pitching a high-stakes espionage tale to studio executives, envisioning Ingrid Bergman as a Mata Hari-type figure. The concept was loosely inspired by John Tainter Foote's 1921 short story, The Song of the Dragon, which producer Selznick had pulled from his archives. While Selznick was initially indifferent, interest from RKO executive William Dozier spurred him into action. Hitchcock collaborated seamlessly with screenwriter Ben Hecht in New York to develop the script. Despite their productive partnership, however, the project hit a snag when Selznick became consumed by his troubled production of the film Duel in the Sun. Annoyed by Selznick's late-night meetings and waning focus, Hitchcock and Hecht were forced to wait as the producer sidelined their project. During the development of the story, Hitchcock introduced a MacGuffin, Nazi-held uranium, which a skeptical Selznick only accepted after the bombing of Hiroshima proved its significance. By June 1945, strained for cash and faith in the plot, Selznick sold the Notorious package to RKO for a reported $800,000 and a 50% profit share. The move granted Hitchcock creative freedom and his first role as producer. But despite the sale, Selznick continued to meddle, unsuccessfully pushing for Cary Grant's replacement and commissioning a rewrite by screen scribe Clifford Odets. Odets' draft, meant to add emotional range, was ultimately rejected by Hecht and mostly ignored by Hitchcock. Filming on Notorious ran from October 1945 to February 1946, primarily on RKO sound stages, to grant Hitchcock total creative control. Rare exceptions included location shooting at the Los Angeles County Arboretum and second unit footage from Miami and Rio. On set, Hitchcock's infatuation with Bergman led to what was up to then an unprecedented partnership between the director and his leading lady, with Hitchcock making her one of his closest acting collaborators on a movie. Notorious was a big hit for the time, earning $24.5 million against a $1 million budget. Although it didn't win any Oscars, it garnered Academy Award nominations for Hecht's screenplay and Claude Rains' supporting performance. Today, Notorious remains a critical masterpiece, holding a 96% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes and a perfect 100 score on Metacritic, one of only 14 films to achieve that number. All right, feast your ears now on the original theatrical trailer for Notorious.
I'm sorry to intrude on this tender scene.
I knew her before you did, loved her before you did. I wasn't as lucky as you.
I'll take care of her myself.
No, not that way.
I stood looking at her when she was asleep. I could have...
Quiet, Alex. You are almost as impetuous as before your wedding. You barred me from that episode. Let me arrange this one.
Alicia, what's wrong with you?
I'm so glad you came.
I had to. I couldn't stand any more waiting and worrying about you. There wasn't a hangover you had that day. You were sick then.
Yes. Yes, I was sick.
What is it?
Oh, death.
What is it, dear? What's wrong with you?
They're poisoning me.
Okie dokie, the forthcoming conversation, it's going to most certainly be spoiler-tastic, folks. So if Notorious remains a blind spot, you owe it to yourself to go watch the movie first and then rendezvous with us at this point, right where you left off. Ignore this advice and don't be surprised if Madame Sebastian issues a razor-tongued insult.
We are protected by the enormity of your stupidity. For a time.
We last spoke with him back in 2024. It was episode number 75. That was when we discussed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And also in episode number 24, and that's when we explored The Shining. He's a renowned critic and film scholar, esteemed journalist, and award-winning author of such works as the Anno Dracula series, Nightmare Movies, A Critical History of the Horror Film, and the forthcoming book, Model Actress Whatever. Kim Newman, welcome back to Cineversary.
I'm very glad to be here.
Right back at you, sir. Always wonderful to hear your voice and to tap your brain on a shared beloved film. And this time it's not a horror picture. It is Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, which in 2026 will be celebrating an 80th anniversary. So just in case you're curious, it was released later in 1946, but we can't perfectly slot every anniversary movie in the given month. There's a lot of other contenders for that month.
It's set in early 1946, and usually it gives you like dates and times.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you've got a little timestamp at the beginning, kind of like Psycho, right? So a little precursor there. All right, well, let's go in the Wayback Machine here. Kim Newman is watching Notorious for the first time. What, when, and where, and why?
Now, Notorious, for some reason, was not often shown on British television when I was growing up. Although I was aware of it, I read books about Hitchcock. I, of course, read the Francois Truffaut Hitchcock interview book. But it
Hmm.
was one of those films I wanted to see. And when I was at university, mm, I took over programming of one strand of the Film Society, and I was allowed basically to pick stuff I wanted to see. And one of the films I picked was Notorious. So I first saw it on a 16 millimeter print at the University of Sussex. I even projected it. It genuinely impressed me. I mean, I think it's a film that actually exceeded my expectations of how good it was.
Mm. Was it something that had come to you with a high reputation and you thought, hey, I'm going to curate this?
Well, obviously, Hitchcock is one of those people who made so many films that are regarded as classics that it's like it's possible to do a top 10 Hitchcock films and have 10 solid masterpieces. Um, Notorious would seem to sort of permanently hover like 8 or 9 on that list.
Yeah, I'd actually rank it number 5. How about you?
When it came to the Sight and Sound, poll every 10 years, I actually put Notorious on as my Hitchcock choice.
I noticed that. That's why we're talking, sir, because I was going through that Sight and Sound 2022 list, and it showed all of the critics who did place it in their list. So yes, I thought of you immediately.
Yeah, and I think Hitchcock made sort of more complicated, more expansive, and certainly films that have lasted in the conversation more
Hmm.
than Notorious. But I think Notorious is one of his perfect films.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I cannot disagree. So your first reaction was, "Wow, you were impressed."
I was astonished by it, and this would be something like 1978
Okay,
with a an audience of students and film buffs, and I think we were all kind of blown away with how modern it felt. It's a film of the 1940s, and it benefits from the technical prowess of filmmakers back then and the studio resources and big stars. But it
of
has some of
course.
the intimacy that I associate with European art cinema of the 50s and 60s. It's kind of raw in a way that Hollywood films tended not to be. I understand that earlier in the development, I mean, and it's a script that took a couple of years to get made and had to change a lot, partly because of changing current events. Early in the development, there were more actual violent incidents. I mean, it's set in Brazil, so there was going to be a scene where somebody falls off that statue of Christ over above Rio de Janeiro. There were going to be murders, and in fact, it's a film with no on-screen violence at all, except poisoning.
Yes.
The the most shocking moment in it is somebody shutting a car door. Which sounds silly, but when you see this at the end of the film, it's absolutely shattering.
Yeah, no, it's so masterfully done, and yeah, we'll get into this in terms of the construction. Almost like a Swiss watch is
Mm,
how I would
yeah.
compare it. But yeah, so I would again. How do you rank these things? I actually do kind of enjoy ranking and thinking about where would I slot a certain thing. And Hitchcock is my all-time favorite director. So believe me, this is no denigration to place at number 5 because it would be right behind Vertigo, Psycho, Rear Window, and North by Northwest for me, and unimpeachable classics all.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, this is his greatest picture of the 1940s. It's his finest work up to this point in his career, and again, it gets even better, which is hard to believe.
Yes.
So, what particular qualities, Kim? What particular elements give Notorious its lasting power? Are there certain aspects of its craft or storytelling that cement it for you as a timeless classic?
For me, it's the fact that it strips away a lot of the frills. It is like a lot of Hitchcock films. It's an espionage story.
Mm,
It's even a wartime story, although it's set and was made slightly post-war, but it was developed during the war, which became a big part of it. But it's basically a three-hander. It's basically three characters with maybe two very important supporting characters.
mm,
It's a romantic triangle, but it does this thing that Hitchcock so often does of turning your assumptions around in that it's a film whose hero in the end is kind of repulsive and whose villain is romantic and doomed. And coming on the heels of a world war, that must have been an enormous stretch.
Yes, to make Nazis sympathetic. Yes.
Yeah. I actually slightly misremember elements because obviously I watched it again before this. The thing that struck me about it this time is that it doesn't actually let Nazis off lightly. It doesn't suggest that Nazis are all big softies or, nice guys. There is this sort of callousness to their attitudes. And it's also that sense that evil people can't be trusted with each other.
That's right.
Very early on, an incidental Nazi character makes a tiny mistake
Emil.
and is kind of murdered out of hand for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that casts a pall over the whole rest of the film. You know that if any of these characters make a slip, they could just be callously killed and dumped in a ravine.
Right.
And never thought of again.
Yeah, and her allegiance, of course, is with Alicia, and we're concerned from the start with her well-being.
Yes, and we are wrapped so much. It is like a lot of 1940s films. It's very much a woman's picture.
Right.
And Alicia is the notorious character.
Mm-hmm.
And Alicia is Ingrid Bergman, who at that time was a huge star, but also a very versatile actress. She played an astonishing range of roles.
No question. This was her decade as well, yeah.
It's a bit of a shock when you meet her first and she's playing kind of a drunken tramp, although that turns out to be a pose, as indeed does the character she plays for the rest of the film. It is a film in which the heroine is emotionally available to us, the audience, but has to lie to everybody else.
Right, right.
And I think that's a fascinating approach.
Yeah, I'm curious, we weren't alive at the time of the release of this film, but I wonder, would that reputation of hers at the start of the picture have tainted her in the minds of audiences? Would she have been less sympathetic and therefore had to earn the sympathies of the audience more? What do you think?
Absolutely. And part of the nugget of the story, which is the thing that Hitchcock particularly wanted to make, is the idea of the female spy who has to sleep with the enemy.
Mata Hari, right.
The Mata Hari story. And usually that story is told from the point of view of the officer who is seduced by Mata Hari.
Mm-hmm.
Even films about Mata Hari, there'd been a Garbo film, and Marlene Dietrich made a movie called Dishonored, which is kind of about that case, had not been told from her point of view. Mata Hari is the seductress, the beautiful object of these films, but the viewpoint of the films is male.
Mm.
Here it's the story of how does Mata Hari feel? How does she feel about the enemy that she actually has to marry in this plot? But also, how does she feel about the spy master, the man who tells her to go and do this, with whom she's genuinely love and who loves her? The casting of the two men couldn't be bettered.
I think it's a perfectly cast movie, possibly the most perfectly cast Hitchcock film, although there are some contenders for that crown. But you don't get any bigger in 1946, right, than Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman as your leads. And this is the first Hitchcock movie with two Hollywood A-listers.
Yeah, and I think that he wanted that. I mean, I think Rebecca has two people who are about to be A-listers, but they're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
He was still, whatever it was, half a decade into his Hollywood career. And I think one of the things that lured him to Hollywood, beside the technical resources of the studio, was the opportunity to work with these larger-than-life gods and goddesses.
Yes.
It's really difficult to understand just how huge movie stars were in the great age of cinema. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like the kind of stardom that people have today is nothing compared to the stardom that the great names of the 1930s and 40s had.
It's true. It's true. But that cast, incredible to me. And what a coup to have in the third position the consistently excellent Claude Rains, who was actually several inches shorter than Bergman, so they had to do some interesting kind of things with platform shoes and such. But then you have Leopoldine Constantin as perhaps Hitchcock's most memorable mother figure, and the always sturdy Louis Calhern as the spy chief. So again, I just marvel at the cast. It's perfectly cast.
Yeah, and it's like, and what's more, it's perfectly cast, even though it's a David O. Selznick production.
Although he washes his hands of it and sells it to RKO.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
His fingerprints, his DNA is over it. Yes.
Yeah, there was a point where he wanted Joseph Cotton, who was under contract to him, to play the Cary Grant role, and Hitchcock insisted on waiting for Cary Grant's availability. In David Thompson's excellent biography of David O. Selznick, he says that during the development and the making of Notorious, Selznick was so obsessed with the making of Jewel in the Sun,
Jennifer Jones,
that he didn't have time to ruin Notorious in the way that he arguably ruined many of his films.
Too busy being infatuated with a starlet. Yes.
That's right, with the leading lady Jennifer Jones. But and I think that's actually a little unfair on Selznick. But I think Notorious marks in a sort of a history of auteurism. It's a really important. It's a moment where the idea of the creator of the film shifts from being the producer. It's David O. Selznick's Gone with the Wind. 3 directors have their names on that. Jewel in the Sun went through a similar number of directors. Yeah. It's David O. Selznick's Rebecca, but it's Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious.
What you're painting here, and I'm glad you brought up Selznick, because we should have name-dropped him eventually, but the film benefits, Notorious benefits from having the fingerprints of other major Hollywood talents all over the celluloid. You mentioned Selznick, who helps develop, but he bows out. The legendary Edith Head in charge of costumes, cinematographer Ted Tetzlaff, and art director Carol Clark. Now, they're not household names, but they were Oscar-nominated in their careers. So what you were saying earlier in terms of Hitchcock, the appeal of America and all of the craftsmen involved in the industry, these are some of the names that are often overlooked. But again, you have a lot of talent behind the camera in a movie like this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Hitchcock ended up doing this at RKO, which Selznick had ties with. And that brought him... RKO, of course, had been the Citizen Kane studio.
King Kong.
But I think more importantly for Notorious, they were the studio that had made the Val Lewton horror film.
Yes.
Roy Webb, who contributed most of the music to those, did his only score for Hitchcock, The Notorious, and it's actually rather in the manner of his Val Lewton score.
It's true. It's a hummable little theme song.
Yeah. I also think it's an excellent and outstanding score. I understand that Hitchcock would have preferred Bernard Herrmann,
right? Who he couldn't get for years and years.
Yeah. But that said, I think that what Webb brings to the film is remarkable. It because so much of it is illustrating or accompanying the interior thoughts of characters who don't get like monologues to explain what they're feeling. Yeah. It's a very romantic score.
Yeah, it's true. It is well done.
And even the score does some of the heavy lifting in setting the film in Rio de Janeiro, which I understand Hitchcock obviously didn't want to go overboard on the kind of South American atmosphere that you were seeing in 20th Century Fox musicals in the 1940s when Carmen Miranda was making movies, and there was an attempt to pitch Hollywood films to South America, apart from anything else.
The road to whatever, yeah. Yeah, but so many elements to discuss here. There's not an ounce of fat on the film. That's a big one. I mean, there's not one superfluous scene for me or one unnecessary character, and that is a testament to the masterfully constructed screenplay, co-written by one of the greatest scribes of this period. We have to mention, of course, Ben Hecht.
Absolutely.
He was a longtime Hitchcock collaborator. He sometimes didn't take credit on films, but the way Hecht and Hitchcock conclude the picture is particularly impressive in its efficiency, its restraint, its craftsmanship. The final 10 minutes playing, as I said, like a perfectly synchronized Swiss watch, ending without any of the gunplay you were saying. No deaths, no chases that maybe we are expecting.
You haven't forgotten what they did to Emile, have you, Sebastian?
Help him, Alex.
I'm glad you have a head on you, madame. I'm not afraid to die. You've got your chance here and now. Tell them who she is.
You need any help, Alex?
No, we can handle her.
Where are you taking her?
You answer that one, Sebastian.
To the hospital. Alex, talk to them, quick.
Glad she's going. You should not have waited so long, Alex.
Well, what am I going to do? Start shooting? Hold on, Donnie. You've only got about 20 yards to go.
What happened, Alex?
She collapsed. Mr. Devlin heard her scream when he was waiting for me. Come on, Alicia. Yes, I telephoned the hospital as soon as I saw how she was.
You have a car, Mr. Devlin?
Out in front.
Your head, Alex.
How do you feel?
A bit dizzy.
Take some deep breaths. Howdy.
Now, just a minute. I must sit with her.
No room, Sebastian.
Oh, you must take me. They're watching me.
That's your headache.
Now, please take me, please. Please.
There is no telephone in her room to call the hospital.
Alex, will you come in, please? I wish to talk to you.
And they'd scripted things like the lead characters getting married, and all this stuff. And
Right.
no, it ends the big emotional beat.
Yeah.
The villain walking to his death.
Amazing. It's such an incredible ending. And, Hitchcock is known for his abrupt endings, many of which are just all-time classic endings. But this could be the most expertly structured and satisfying denouement to any film by the master of suspense.
Oh,
for me.
yeah. I think as an ending, it's kind of up there. The thing it most reminds me of, weirdly, is the ending of William Wyler's The Heiress,
I never saw it. Okay.
which ends with somebody outside a door, unable to get in.
Interesting.
Here, in fact, the terrifying thing is the door is open, although the car door is closed.
Okay.
As Sebastian Claude-Rains walks back into the
Mhm.
house where he knows that his comrades will murder him for letting a viper into their little circle of evil.
Now, do you know, between Hecht and Hitchcock, who pushed for this ending? Did it have to be compromised? Is this more of a kind of an English ending to you, and that leans toward Hitchcock?
I think it is. Hecht actually did like the first and the third drafts. There's a middle draft by Clifford Odets.
That's right. Although I'm reading that they kind of let everything he contributed go.
Yeah, it seems that he did actually make some changes that they kept, but they didn't keep any of his dialogue.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think it was a case of cutting stuff out rather than including stuff. And I think that this is probably the great benefit of not having the notes of David O. Selznick, forcing them to put in scenes explaining stuff.
Yeah, right.
I actually think that as just a piece of simple narrative, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
It's absolutely understandable. People said at the time that audiences might find it hard to work out why that sand in the wine bottle is important, but by that time, I think you buy that.
Yeah.
It's actually a really smartly told film, and Hitchcock, he's very rarely given credit for being the experimental filmmaker he was. He was always looking for different ways of telling stories, and there are obvious ways he uses in some films, like the long takes in Rope.
Sure. Or Lifeboat, where it's all confined in one
Yeah,
spot, right?
Rear Window, where you're all
Uh-huh.
in one room, you see the neighbors through the windows. This doesn't have any of that, except it does, but you just don't notice it because the methods he uses to tell the story are just so smart that they now seem like the thing that everybody would naturally do to tell this story.
That's a fair point. Yeah, we will dovetail back to this little sub-point here later, because I think there are some innovative things, some things that might have influenced other directors.
Oh, absolutely.
Notorious shines as a showcase for some of Hitchcock's most bravura visual flourishes. Now, we'll just kind of go through the list. Of course, the famous elevated crane shot that swoops us down to the key held in Bergman's hand, all while maintaining camera focus, Pretty impressive for the day. A very difficult technical shot.
Yeah.
Devlin, I think of Devlin standing in the doorway, that canted point of view shot while Lisa wakes up from the hangover. The extended makeout sequence between Grant and Bergman that lasts nearly 3 minutes. I want to go into this in more detail next. The wine cellar discovery moment as well, where you have tight spatial framing, expert cutting that heightens the tension and the claustrophobia. You think of the tainted coffee segment, which uses carefully aligned POV shots, rhythmic cutting, exact performance timing to do what? To transform a mundane gesture into an experience of mounting dread, right? You think of Lisa's poison-induced hallucination. There are various shots where clever lighting, blocking, pacing, they all underscore Alicia's gradual physical decline. And of course, the fantastic rescue finale that employs masterful cross-cutting and a gliding camera down that staircase. So yeah, one great shot or sequence after another, and some really terrific camera work.
And quite often he's refining things that he's tried before. There's the British film Young and Innocent also has a terrific long shot from a very wide view moving into a close-up of a guy playing the drums in a hotel ballroom, and you start seeing the whole ballroom, and you close in on the drummer, and then you close in on his eye, which twitches, which gives away that he's the murderer.
Great stuff, yes.
It's almost like the whole of that film is built around that one scene, whereas this is all moments like that. It's all bravura.
It's easy to forget about that moment, which is often the most talked about, but the truth is there are so many other examples of greatness that it just kind of is of a piece.
And it's not showy in the way. It's like people came out of Young and Innocent and said, noticing the technique, noticing that one scene.
Right.
And I think that that's true of some other set pieces in Hitchcock films. Obviously the shower scene in Psycho. People came out of the film thinking that was the highlight. Maybe one of the reasons why Notorious kind of slips down the rankings is that it's all like that. As I say, it's one of Hitchcock's perfect films in that there are no set pieces that stand out because it dovetails so perfectly.
I totally agree. Yeah, well articulated. Absolutely share your POV there. Just to quickly round up here, as far as just some of the accolades, the greatness, Roger Ebert named it his favorite Hitchcock film, as did you. He included it among his 10 greatest films of all time, in fact. It did place number 66 on Entertainment Weekly's greatest films list. It was number 77 on the Village Voice's top 250 films of the century poll. Let's see, the AFI ranked it number 38 on its 100 Years, 100 Thrills list. It was number 86 on its 100 Years, 100 Passions list. I know there's a lot of lists here, but Time Out included it in its all-time 100 movies roundup. Cahiers de Cinema placed it number 38 in 2008. The BBC named it 68th among the greatest American films. That was in 2015. Let's see. BBC Sight and Sound poll of critics had Notorious slotted at number 133 out of 250. So not too shabby. So let's, I did say we will discuss ways that maybe the film broke new ground or left an imprint on later directors or films. What springs to mind for you?
As I say, it's the intimacy. Obviously, there's that famous lengthy kissing scene, which is interrupted by a lot of dialogue. And Hitchcock said he did that because it was in order to get around the censor prohibition. I think he would have done it anyway. I think it's enormously effective.
It's nice out here. Let's not go out for dinner. Let's stay here.
We have to eat.
Well, you can eat here. I'll cook.
I thought you didn't like to cook.
No, I don't like to cook. But I have a chicken in the icebox, and you're eating it.
What about all the washing up afterwards?
We'll eat it with our fingers.
Don't we need any plates?
Yes. One for you and one for me.
Do you mind if I had dinner with you tonight?
I'd be delighted. Where are you going?
Well, if you're going to stay in, I have to telephone the hotel, see if there are any messages.
You have to.
I have to.
This is a very strange love affair.
Why?
Maybe the fact that you don't love me.
And it's a clever way of conveying a lot of information while you're also delivering the emotional impact of the film. And I'm going to say, you gave that list of accolades and critical acclaim that it's had. Here's another one. It made a lot of money.
Yes.
It was enormously successful, popular film.
Yeah, what am I reading here? The budget was, if you can trust Wikipedia for what it's worth, it says $1 million budget. The box office would have been $24.5 million. So yeah, pretty good return.
Yeah, but it was not a film that was perceived as arty or difficult or challenging.
Mhm.
It was a big popular romantic splash movie that nevertheless delivered disturbing undercurrents. It's
Totally.
that thing of giving you a love story that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because it's a suspense movie, you can get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was embraced by not just carriage trade audiences. This was a film that played really well with general audiences at the time, as well as with critics, which was not the case with, say, Orson Welles' films, which were thought of as critical darlings, but did not appeal to mass audiences.
Yeah, big problem there.
Perhaps along with John Ford and Howard Hawks, Hitchcock was the absolute master of making films of total artistic integrity that still would play in Peoria.
Yes, good point.
Anybody could go and see and would get stuff out of.
Well, thankfully, otherwise he wouldn't have had the long career that he did.
Absolutely,
He definitely was a crowd pleaser.
And
Yes,
Ford and Hawks also had that.
no question about it.
Yeah, that connection with what audiences wanted to see. And yet, their films don't feel to me like they're spoon-feeding audiences the way that the contemporary films that are hailed as sort of your audience hits tend to. Their films are complicated. Maybe the 1940s were complicated times. Maybe audiences.
Sure.
It said that they demanded to be treated like grown-ups
Mm-hmm.
because they were in the middle of a war or getting over a war.
Right.
And that meant that they were asking for more from films.
Yes, and by this time they were already being given a healthy smattering of film noir, and that film noir is one of those genres or subgenres where, yes, you are treating the audience as adults. So yes, absolutely. And also horror movies are a little more sophisticated and so forth. Val Lewton and so forth. So you have elements of that even in Notorious in terms of the cinematography, in terms of some of the dark subject matter. But I want to go back to what the extended kissing sequence, because I absolutely agree. Hitchcock sets the bar very high for sexy smooching in the 1940s.
And I understand that the actors didn't think it would work. One of the things in the film is that you actually have to buy the relationship between Alicia and Devlin, or the story doesn't work.
And it's a complicated one. It's an on and off again. It's cold. It's hot. It's so. And it's just, this is what makes the film fascinating to me, is really getting your arms around that relationship, because it's really about their relationship. So, but again, the kissing scene is about 3 minutes, give or take. And just a little context, the Hays Code, the censorship of the time, it forced filmmakers to limit each on-screen kiss to 3 seconds or less. Okay, but as you say, Hitchcock's going to go beyond the speed limit here. He gets around the rule by doing what? By, as you said, having Alicia and Devlin lock lips for brief moments. They disengage, they re-engage continually. They're talking in between about, and it's very sexually coded language about having dinner and what they're going to eat and all of this.
Yeah.
Their first kiss during the sequence actually lasts, I counted, it was 4 seconds. So he's already from the start breaking the 3-second rule and getting away with it, as he would do in so many pictures where I don't know what he's doing. I don't think that anybody's greasing the palms of the censors, but Hitchcock is pushing the envelope right from the start. Also, as we said, as far as innovative or breaking new ground, leaving an imprint on later directors, as we said, the filmmakers prove that you can create a sympathetic Nazi villain just months after the end of World War II. We arguably feel warmer toward Alexander, toward Sebastian, than Devlin for most of the picture.
Well, yeah. One thing we should say is that you cannot accuse anybody involved in this film of being a Nazi sympathizer.
Oh, no, not at all.
Ben Hecht was probably the most anti-Nazi person in Hollywood. He said that Franklin Delano Roosevelt wasn't hard enough on Germany.
I think by the time the twist happens and Sebastian realizes who Alicia is, we are no longer in his corner. There's no question about it. But for a good stretch of time here, you have some sympathetic, characters who are Nazis. And even Emil, this pitiable bumbler, gets rubbed out quite early in the story. I even feel a little bit of, poor guy, but then again, hey, he's working for the wrong team.
Yeah.
So
And Hank does something which I think would probably only have been possible in 1946, is he actually names a real company, IG Farben, who had been involved with the Nazi regime and would continue as an important company. But he names them as like the Smersh or the Spectre of this spy conspiracy.
Interesting. I did not know that was a real company. Okay.
I think what it is that at this point, IG Farben were not going to be suing for libel. They were being exposed of a lot worse, although I suspect they weren't.
Okay.
Backing a Nazi atomic bomb project in Brazil. They had done plenty of terrible things.
Okay, gotcha.
That would become a great shame for them. I suppose in the end, it's that we believe that Sebastian loves Alicia more than Devlin does.
That's important. That's where I think the empathy/sympathy comes in, because we can see that the feelings are genuine. And I believe the feelings are genuine for Devlin. It's just that it's so complicated and he's so jealous and resentful that he gives her the cold shoulder quite a bit. But as far as pushing the envelope here, innovative, maybe influential, this picture has got one of the most malevolent matriarchs ever to grace the screen.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Alexander's mom, played with this icy aplomb by Constantine, the quintessential mother-in-law from hell. Now, this character, along with Mrs. Vale in Now Voyager, that was 1942, one of the earliest examples, Kim, of a villainous mother role in a non-horror, non-animated Hollywood feature film.
I've got to say, she reminds me of the mad actress in Robert Wise's Curse of the Cat People.
Yeah.
Who is misguided in the end rather than evil.
Right.
But that was an RKO film only a year or so before Notorious.
Oh, it's such a good movie, too. Yeah, absolutely. But the anomalous relationship between Sebastian and his mother, you think about, like, maybe it paved the way for future aberrant mother-son pairings, of course, in later Hitchcock films. You think of Strangers on a Train, North by Northwest, Psycho, The Birds, even Marnie, and in movies by other directors. I think of The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, or White Heat, of course, the famous mother-son relationship there. Sudden Fear, Manchurian Candidate. So I think this is kind of setting the template, if you will, for that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, and Madame Leopold Constantine, she's billed, or Madame Constantine. I think she only made one English language film. She was a Czech actress. Made a lot of German silent films and been a big German stage star. She'd actually been retired for quite a while and for obvious reasons had got out of Europe. But she is so good in this film. You sort of wonder why she didn't then go on. Because in the way that after making a screen debut at the age of 60 in The Maltese Falcon, Sidney Greenstreet then worked a lot. It seems that it didn't work for Madame Constantine, or maybe she just didn't want to work anymore.
Yeah, she kind of reminds me of like a Maria Ospinskaya from The Wolfman. It's character actress who's very ethnic and very, very good.
Yeah. She's although she's Czech, she's actually the most convincing German. She's more convincing than Reinhold Schulz.
It's true.
Who is?
She's got the accent down, no question about it. But many believe that Notorious, along with its direct Hitchcock descendant North by Northwest, it helped influence contemporary spy movies, particularly the James Bond films that began in the early 60s. What do you think? Does this hold weight?
Yes, I think it does. To backtrack a bit, at some point somebody asked Ian Fleming who he would have cast as James Bond. And he said exactly what Raymond Chandler and Leslie Charteris said, Cary Grant.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like all authors wanted their heroes to be played by Cary Grant. I think because all authors secretly thought they were Cary Grant. In this film, you could actually see how good Cary Grant would have been as Ian Fleming's James Bond, the James Bond Casino Royale.
In this film, it's really the two Hitchcock pictures he's done that are his main non-comedic roles up to this point, right? I mean, this is where he's playing a heavy.
Yeah.
or a heavier, let's put it that way. So again, it just shows his range, his versatility a bit more.
Yeah. I admit he's introduced with the back of his head like Boris Karloff in Frankenstein, which is another odd.
Good point. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And it's a film that sort of depends on how supernaturally attractive he is, but you also get a sense of the cruelty, which is for him a necessity of the job. I mean, I think that's the thing that feeds into James Bond.
Yeah, this is Grant in his cruelest role
Yeah.
that I've seen anyway. I mean, you don't associate him with that kind of a character very often. So again, I'm really impressed.
In fact, one of the reasons why Clifford Odets worked on this film is that Odets had written None But the Lonely Heart, which it was a critical and commercial failure. It was a film in which Grant played a heel, and that had been sort of an attempt. But of course, it doesn't work in None But the Lonely Heart, which is an awkward film anyway. But it does work here because it eases you into is that Devlin is a patriot. He is doing a dirty job that has to be done. He is motivated by essentially saving the world, saving civilization. And yet what he does seems to be morally unconscionable.
Yeah, we will definitely get more into this as we talk thematically in just a bit. But just to round out this point about maybe subsequent movies or filmmakers that were inspired by Hitchcock or Notorious, there was a remake. I never saw it. A German remake called White Poison, 1951.
There was a TV movie in the 80s, which I did see, but I have very little remember. They updated it, and it's about the villain isn't a Nazi, but he's a drugs baron.
Interesting. Okay. I know it's spoofed in the Steve Martin comedy Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, if you take the romantic angle out, White Heat isn't so different because Edmund O'Brien has to become best friends
Good point.
with a charismatic criminal whose mother dominates.
Right. They're a good bookend kind of wine pairing, if you will.
And then you look at, say, Point Break or even The Fast and the Furious.
Or Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah, where somebody has to form a genuine relationship with the criminal while they're working undercover.
Yes. Or The Departed.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, and Infernal Affairs. Yeah.
Yes.
The idea of the undercover story,
Mm-hmm.
Deep Cover, a Lawrence Fishburne film I really like, has it too. It became a kind of a film noir staple, but obviously it's simply applying wartime espionage methods to peacetime crime. I can't think of any 1930s gangster equivalents of that. It's something that seems to be a post-war thing. Several of Anthony Mann's films like T-Men and Border Patrol have the same thing, the undercover agent.
Yes.
But here, of course, the fact that it's the undercover agent is a woman, and it is a genuine romantic relationship, although there's something really tormenting and film noirish about the male relationships in some other cop movie.
The only contemporary example is something like Mission Impossible 2 from the year 2000. That's been called a loose remake of Notorious.
It does borrow quite a lot from Notorious.
Yeah, it's a blind spot. I'll have to catch up to it, but yeah. So there you go. So not a huge lineage here, but there are some interesting examples. Let's talk briefly about directing decisions by Hitchcock in Notorious and what stands out to you. What's he doing differently, Kim, in this film than in previous pictures or subsequent works?
I think he's getting closer. I think his camera is closer to people. I think it's a film that's very much informed by Hollywood melodrama. And I don't mean melodrama in a kind of put down or overdone sense. I mean, in the sense of putting like raw emotion on the screen. I think previous Hitchcock films, maybe one or two things like Saboteur have, in which the heroine's also married to the villain, and in that have sort of that sense of agony, but most of them are kind of breezy, even if they're about murders. There's a sort of playfulness to them. And I'm not saying this isn't playful, but I think that it involves the audience. And I think that, again, this is one of the reasons why it was commercially a success.
Well, also, many consider this Hitchcock's first truly realized love story, one that's less, you could argue, a spy film than a gripping story about, as I said, relationships, about a convoluted, as you said, romantic triangle.
Yeah, there have been romantic relationships in Oh yeah, Hitchcock films. The British films tend to have things like the 39 Steps and The Lady Vanishes, Young and Innocent. They had kind of couple on the run, um, thin man type relationships between uh, hero and heroine, banter while thwarting spies and solving crimes.
But I gotta tell you, when I think of Notorious, and maybe it's just bias after seeing it so many times and really kind of parsing it in my brain or in my heart. I think of it as a love story. I don't think of it as a necessarily a thriller. It is a fantastic thriller.
I think of it that way too. I think that it fits into that 1940s tradition of kind of noirish romantic stories. The film that Hitchcock and Bergman and Selznick had made immediately prior to this is Spellbound,
Right.
which is very heavy on the psychoanalysis. And I think that seems to inform so many neurotic 1940s romances like The Seventh Veil, Lady in the Dark, but Notorious sort of doesn't psychoanalyze its characters.
No, there's no Freud in this.
They're not particularly aberrant. It's situationally complicated rather than people wrestling with their inner demons. These are people who are acting according to their own instincts, but they are at the mercy of world events. That's what giving them jip.
Fair point. Yeah.
Rather than remembering that they killed their brother as a child, or the various psychological problems that you see in Vertigo or Marnie or Psycho.
Right.
These people are even Alexander, the smothering mother, doesn't seem to be psychologically abnormal in that way.
Although there is a bit of deference to the maternal authority that I suspect there that is a little bit she's controlling.
Yeah, but still he's the head of a business. And I think it's this thing that in the conspiracy everybody is doomed, isn't it? It's like nobody's actually in control. It's an actor called Ivan Trisol, isn't he, who plays the executioner of the group. But most of the second half of the film is about trying to it has the Sebastian mother and son try to keep from the outright killer of the group what's going on. They have to hide that and take care of murdering Alicia themselves, but doing it quietly so nobody will notice in order to survive.
Mattis is very sharp.
Yes, he dislikes you. But his criticism of your talents wouldn't go that far to imagine that you are married to an American agent. We are protected by the enormity of your stupidity. For a time.
Alicia, I'll take care of her myself.
No, not that way.
Stood looking at her when she was asleep. I could have...
Quiet, Alex. You're almost as impetuous as before your wedding. You barred me from that episode. Let me arrange this one. Listen to me. No one must know what she is. There must be no suspicion of her, of you, or me. She must be allowed to move about freely, but she will be on a leash. She will learn nothing further to inform. She must go, but it must happen slowly. If she could become ill, and remain ill for a time, until...
You have a major sequence which is about Alicia and Devlin exploring the wine cellar and being worried that they will be caught spying. And in the end, they have to pretend that they snuck away to make out, rather than snuck away to find out the atom secrets in the basement.
Yeah, thinking on their feet quickly, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to intrude on this tender scene.
I couldn't help what happened. He's been drinking.
So he carried you down here.
Oh, please, Alex.
You love him.
No, of course not. Please go.
For what it's worth, as an apology, your wife is telling the truth. I knew her before you, loved her before you, but I wasn't as lucky as you. Sorry, Alicia.
Please go.
Good night.
Alex, don't be foolish. I came down here because he threatened to make a scene unless I'd see him alone.
He kissed you.
I couldn't stop him. I tried.
We'll talk about it later.
But the thing is, a lie is the truth. They really are lovers. And but then the next chunk is about the Sebastians trying to pretend that Alicia is just sick and a loyal wife and good Nazi. They're killing her.
That's right. That's part of the fascination of like, okay, so what do they have to say? What do they have to avoid? How are they going to pull off this, charade? Yeah, again, it's just endlessly fascinating. But I will go back to it's a love story for me. And what is he doing? Well, here I'm going to quote just a couple of people. Donald Spoto, the biographer, Hitchcock biographer, said in an interview in the Criterion Collection, he takes all the elements of a typical romance and turns them upside down. The romance isn't a romance until the end. I tend to agree with him there. Brian Eggert, a Deep Focus Review essayist, really good guy. He said, ingenious for its marriage of breathless tension and an aching love story, it is Hitchcock's greatest film. No other single Hitchcock film tells us so much about how his cinema functions, and no other Hitchcock film functions in such a thrilling, romantic way. And then lastly, William Rothman from the Criterion Collection said that this is the first Hitchcock film whose every shot is not only filled with meaning, but also beautiful. Hitchcock seems to be in love with the world he is creating. Shot after shot simply takes our breath away. For the first time in a Hitchcock film, the camera achieves a lush romanticism equal to its wit, elegance, and theatricality, as it will be in his greatest later films. So yeah, I tend to agree with these folks. What do you think?
Yeah, me too.
And as you said, this is Hitchcock's first opportunity to be his own producer. So what is he doing differently? Well, again, he's sitting in the producer's chair as well. He's still under contract to Selznick at this time. He was temporarily freed from this servitude when Selznick sold the project to RKO. We talked about that. What else is different? Well, I guess we'll talk briefly about the MacGuffin. It's pretty noteworthy because, what is it? It's the uranium ore bottled up in the wine cellar. And you ponder that during pre-production, from what I understand, no one involved knew that uranium would be a key ingredient in the creation of the atomic bomb. And fascinatingly, Hitchcock insisted that he was tailed by the FBI for months after discussing uranium with his collaborators prior to filming. So that's a very interesting MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. While he was on the film, Selznick went from saying this is ridiculous and nobody will understand it to after the atomic bomb became very well known, saying we've got to make this quickly because we want to catch in.
Yeah, talk about good timing.
Actually, and this is a case where I can see that a producer was making a reasonable suggestion. He says, if this film is about the atomic bomb, shouldn't we actually see a bomb test destroy a mountain? But in the end, the film came out a full year after the end of World War II.
I argue the answer to that is no. But just as you don't need gunplay, dead bodies, and car chases, you end it tactfully.
Yeah, by the time the film came out, it went back to being just, as Hitchcock always said about the MacGuffin, it was something that the audience didn't really care about.
Yes.
Yeah, it could be jewels, it could be papers,
microfilm.
It could be the formula for a new alloy, whatever. But the fact that it was, zeitgeisty, I can see one of the issues that I imagine they discussed in development is that when they had the idea of making it the atomic bomb was the big threat, the big secret that was being closed, then it was the thought that really evil people like Nazis would develop this technology, and there were some experiments in Norway that led slightly towards the possibility that Hitler might have developed a bomb. That would be a really bad thing. But by the time the film came out, we knew that the only people who had developed and used the atom bomb were us. It became something the good guys had a monopoly on. And it wasn't quite early enough for the Cold War worries, and all the atom spy movies of the later 40s and 50s, where it became a question of whether the West or the communist bloc would have an exclusivity on various forms of nuclear warfare. All that was by the by in 1946.
But 80 years later, it feels pretty serendipitous. Good timing. Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of finish this thought, what is he doing differently? Well, he's cleverly shifting, Hitchcock, occasionally between objective and subjective camera throughout the movie so that we share Alicia's eyes, we better identify with her. You recall how when she suffers the hangover, we view Devlin upside down from her vantage point. That's a good example of that. When she's being poisoned, we see fuzzy, distorted framings. So, and also the perspectives of other characters are occasionally shown. You think of the unnamed reporter peeking into the courtroom at the very beginning of the film.
Yeah.
You ponder on Sebastian watching Alicia with Devlin, and then Devlin surveying Alicia with Sebastian. So he's very good at POV and different vantage points, is he not? And also, as is true, I know this is kind of a given with Hitchcock, but we should mention it. I mean, as is true in so many of his works, the key to effective suspense and intrigue is that he provides the viewer with more information than the main protagonist. And what does that do? Well, it increases our concern for her well-being, as well as the intelligence mission she has accepted. We are shown privileged scenes in which Alicia is necessarily absent. You think of the private meetings between Devlin and his superiors, meetings between Sebastian and his fellow Nazis, between Sebastian and his mother, where crucial details are shared. Most importantly, Sebastian's realization of her true identity, his plan to slowly kill her. That is a crucial pivot point where if we're following her POV consistently throughout the movie, which Hitchcock just would not have done, it's a lesser film.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's a film that includes us. It includes the audience. We're constantly being asked, how do we feel about this? What have we picked up? I think watching it again, the shot that really struck me, and it's almost like a jump scare, is the moment where the other German picks up the wrong cup of coffee. And both Sebastian and his mother are horrified that he's about to poison himself. And that's what tells Alicia what's going on.
What Alicia needs is rest, not mountain climbing.
I've heard about the Aimores.
Did you? Really?
Yes. One of the beautiful little native towns. Tell me, are you going to Leopoldina?
No. I'm going to Santa Maria.
Care for some more brandy, Otto?
No, thank you. I never drink more than one brandy, and even this is sometimes too much. I'll just finish my coffee.
No, that is
Oh, but that's
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, perhaps Alex is right, my dear child. When you are young, rest is the best doctor. And if you lie still for a few days, reading, relaxing, forgetting all your troubles, it might be as well as medicine or sea air.
That's a good one. But also the earlier meeting where Emile is kind of fussing about the wine bottles is kind of a little bit of a jump scare. But I see what you're getting at there. Yeah, absolutely. You ponder also, Kim, how Hitchcock uses music or the absence of it, and that's important in this film. Near the ending, from the moment Devlin reaches Alicia's bed, if you remember, until they begin to leave the room, there's like 3.5 tense minutes that elapse with no music.
Alicia, what's wrong with you?
I'm so glad you came.
I had to. I couldn't stand anymore, waiting and worrying about you. That wasn't the hangover you had that day. You were sick then. What is it?
Yes, I was sick.
What's wrong with you, Alicia?
Oh, Dad.
What is it, dear? What's wrong with you?
They're poisoning me. I couldn't get away from them. I tried, but I was too weak.
How long?
Since the party.
And earlier, instead of queuing up like this, not tightening score where Devlin and Alicia are in the wine cellar, what do we hear? It's diegetic Brazilian music played by the band upstairs. During the extended kissing scene, it's diegetic music from far away that kind of fades out. So it's very interesting. He's not too bombastic with the music.
I suspect that is one of the things that Hitchcock, as producer, had to say on that maybe David O. Selznick would have insisted on the full orchestra. One of the things that the film does is trust us to be involved. It doesn't need music to keep telling us how to feel, to feel worried or to feel romantic or to feel silly. It allows what's happening on the screen to involve us. I agree with you. I think that the last 3 minutes of the film were among the best bits of filmmaking Hitchcock ever did.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. It's literally 3 people leave a house and one goes back.
Yep. Exactly. You don't have to be dangling from Lincoln's nose to keep our interest.
Yeah.
But also, real quickly, the director's approach in Notorious interestingly deviates, Kim, from many of his other films. Quite uncharacteristically for Hitchcock, he and Hecht, I'm learning, revamped the screenplay during filming, often completing pages the night before cameras rolled. That is very uncharacteristic for Hitchcock.
Yes, it is.
He broke his own rule of disallowing actor input and improvisation. Not so much cattle or chattel here. The director took advice from Bergman on how to shoot a particular sequence differently. Now, in particular, this is specifically the dinner scene where she observes Emile concerned about those wine bottles. And that's an extremely rare occurrence for somebody who is known as an ultra-controlling figure who carefully plans every facet of filmmaking before shooting. And I'm learning he also encouraged ad-libbing by Grant and Bergman during the extended kissing scene as well. So, boy, very non-Hitchcockian. And third, Bergman and her Alicia character are distinguished from other classic Hitchcock leading ladies, if you think about it. She's a brunette who's been around the block. She's not this seemingly unattainable icy blonde, as you often see in so many Hitchcock movies. Yeah, and also the paradigm here is the rescuing of a brunette by a right man instead of the classic Hitchcock pattern of a blonde rescued by or partnered with a wrong man on the run, as in 39 Steps or Saboteur, To Catch a Thief, or North by Northwest. And lastly, this is the first instance of a Hitchcock espionage or spy thriller, as you said, where there's no deadly physical violence. There are no assassinations, there's no shootings, no stabbings, no bombings, zero on-screen deaths. Very uncharacteristic for Hitchcock, at least up to this point. Usually you'd have some kind of physical violence in these movies.
Yeah, and it was considered. Earlier drafts had all those elements. I think what it is the sense that during the making of the film, Hitchcock realized how strong it was and realized what he didn't need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I see it as the work of a filmmaker who is fully becoming confident. He's becoming confident in his own powers, but also in the control that he exerts over the material. I think he is able to fully collaborate with Bergman and Grant because he sees them as equals in a way that he maybe didn't see many other actors.
I think the fact that they're the Hollywood A-listers he's always wanted to work with also helps. I think he's granting them a lot more power and autonomy.
Yeah,
right?
And he's not being told to tailor the film to movie stars the way that Selznick did.
Mm-hmm.
He is not being forced by anyone else to do anything. So therefore, he unbends on some of his own rules because now it's his game.
Yes, it makes sense. Yeah,
certainly, I think I get the impression it's a film that he enjoyed more than some of his other experiences.
Well, certainly when he's got Selznick off his back and he's sitting in the producer's chair. So yeah, I would get that. So yeah, what central themes or ideas run through Notorious, Kim, that stick out for you? What particular lessons or insights might today's viewers still find meaningful?
Well, I think that the central theme of how far do you go to defeat fascism is obviously horrifyingly relevant in contemporary terms. I think also the idea of compromising your own morality for the greater good, there seems to be something strong going on there. But to me, it's a film that is much more wrapped up in its feelings than its ideas,
okay,
which is unusual perhaps for Hitchcock, who was, I think, sometimes thought of as a clever director rather than a feeling director. I think maybe his greatest films are the ones where his own emotions are off the leash. At this, I think, is the film where that first really boils over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, for 1946, it's a hot movie, isn't it? It's clearly an erotic thriller if it's got a genre.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could have fun remaking it today. I wouldn't recommend anybody. Remember the lessons of Gus Van Sant. But
yeah.
But if it were remade, you could have lots of steamy sex if you chose to.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure who you choose to do a remake of it. And I say it has been remade a couple of times. And it's sort of, but because it's, I mean, technically they bought a Saturday Evening Post story, but it's an original. Hitchcock had the nugget of an idea which Ben Hecht worked up into an original story.
No, it's pretty carefully distinguished from that original.
It's not like Psycho or Marnie or The 30 Steps, which are based on novels. You know, it's
Right.
as a property, it's only itself.
Now, it could easily be reinvented for modern audiences. It's a kind of an evergreen story, and you could even make it a period piece set in the wartime if you chose to.
Yeah.
But again, you're right in terms of it is distinct in his oeuvre in terms of it's more of a feeling, emotional picture. It's about the love story, absolutely. But any event, thematically, boy, what stands out to me? Well, certainly trust and betrayal, right? I mean, Devlin betrays Alicia emotionally, you could argue. Alicia betrays Devlin romantically. Alicia betrays Sebastian personally and professionally. And Sebastian betrays Alicia mortally, if you will, with each relationship complicating the next. So again, betrayal, trust, front and center. Also, play acting, the masking of identities is certainly on display in Notorious, which is concerned with pretending to be something or someone you're not. Alicia has to feign love and affection for Sebastian. Devlin and Alicia disguise their love for each other as animosity. Sebastian and his mother keep up appearances to avoid the suspicion of their fellow Nazis, as you laid the case. Every major character seems to play a role, whether it's patriot, lover, spouse, loyal soldier. So identity in Notorious is strategic. It's fluid. It's particularly for Alicia, whose survival relies on convincing performances. You mentioned the price of personal sacrifice, how Alicia accepts the undercover assignment out of patriotic duty, but consequently, she has to sacrifice her relationship with Devlin, and she subjects herself to reputational degradation. So there is a price to be paid, we gather, watching Notorious. Paternal versus maternal control, I think of as a theme here, because the story centers on a woman who's willing to have her identity transformed to, satisfy the demands of manipulative male authority, if you will. And that's a theme Hitchcock would revisit more obsessively in Vertigo, right? But this film also depicts how Sebastian defers to his mother's infantilizing authority, I would argue.
Yeah.
So again, that control in terms of male versus female, paternal versus maternal is very interesting to me. This is a damsel in distress story. It invokes, to me, a dark fairy tale vibe, Kim, with Alicia cast, as, if you will, as a cunning princess captured by a shadowy knight. And there is an evil stepmother kind of figure, right? She's imprisoned in a figurative tower at the top of the staircase.
Yeah.
She's in need of rescue by a brave prince. So you can distill it down to those fairy tale elements, right?
Yeah, I imagine that Selznick probably looked at it and saw elements of Rebecca, which had been a big hit for Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Yeah, which also, I mean, it's a housekeeper rather than a mother, but that also has that, a woman entering into an dark house. Even Suspicion, his other Joan Fontaine movie with Cary Grant, has, a woman in a house where she may be under threat of being poisoned.
Right.
Yeah, it's so much part of the melodrama tradition, the Jane Eyre or
Yep, the gothic melodrama, right.
the heroines in Old Dark House with fatal men. I think that threads through it. It may well be why it didn't seem like a radical film. It felt to audiences like something that was a refreshing spin on something that was fundamentally familiar.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And then just to kind of close the book here, there are visual symbolic images that persist, recurring patterns and motifs. Most importantly, of course, surveillance. Characters are constantly spying on or suspiciously watching other characters. That's a given. Keys, right? Minor objects that command major attention. Whoever possesses the keys in Sebastian's house seems to garner power and knowledge. The consumption of dangerous liquids, that's a motif. Whether it's poison can be, one of the liquids, or alcohol. Alcohol is a form of poison.
Drinking in this film.
Lots of drinking.
Most Hollywood films of the 40s, you're surprised at how much the characters smoke. Here, how much they drink.
Yeah, Casablanca is the smoking film. This is the drinking film.
Yeah. I mean, there's indeed a moment where a plot point hinges on Claude Rains deciding not to give any more champagne to the guests upstairs.
That's right, yeah. And then, of course, the staircase, to me. I mean, it's the architectural centerpiece of the film that represents the nexus between the private, which is the upstairs, and the public, which is downstairs. Alicia, she ascends the staircase, and that results in risk and danger. I think of anytime she's going up, it's red flag. And then when she comes down, the descending, it provides a means of escape and control. You consider that two of the most important shots in the film have the camera perched at the top of the staircase. Of course, the famous crane shot that forward tracks to Alicia's hand. And secondly, the moment when Alicia collapses and is taken upstairs by Sebastian and his men. Both shot from the very top of the staircase. And that suggests to me, and this is a little bit of a stretch perhaps, but even the staircase has a POV and is therefore a spying character unto itself in a story filled with watchers.
Yeah, it's a major Gothic trope that you meet villains at top of staircases. But I think you first see Sebastian's mother, lurking at the top of a staircase, looking down at the foyer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's all of a piece. The staircases seem to have a lot of symbolic weight in movies like this. So there's also a lot of mirroring callbacks in Notorious, symbolic images or ideas that are repeated. Now, cases in point, I guess, would be the doomed figure being judged at the very beginning. You have Alicia's father with his back to the viewer, and the movie ends bookendingly with a different doomed figure being judged, Sebastian, also with his back to us. We see the back of Devlin's head when he first makes his appearance in the movie, and in a later scene, if you recall, in the main office, he's also facing away from the camera. So there's a lot of pairing and kind of mirroring going on. We observe partygoers passed out from intoxication, alcohol poisoning, and later Alicia fainting from poisoned coffee. There are two love tests that she's subjected to, right? There's one by Devlin. The other is by Sebastian when he proposes marriage. There are two rescues of Alicia by Devlin. The first occurs when he convinces the patrol officer to overlook her drunk driving. And, of course, the famous rescue at the end. So there's a lot of twinning or mirroring going on in Notorious. It is the 80th birthday of Notorious. Birthdays are all about giving presents, but it's the fans who continue to receive the gifts. That is the central thesis of our podcast. So what is this film's greatest gift to viewers? What would you say, Kim?
I think it's the film that makes Ingrid Bergman sexy. I mean, she's a romantic figure in many films, but I think this is the one case where she's allowed to be really sensual. Right in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I was just going to say that. She's pretty sexy there.
Yeah, but I think this is the one where she's allowed to present herself in a different way on screen. I think there had been a tendency in Casablanca. She's sort of presented as a symbolic angel character, almost, isn't it? And she was about to play St. Joan. Those seem to be Ingrid Bergman type roles, and she played nuns and scientists or whatever. Here, we actually see her as a sensual woman. And also, even though it's quite an angsty story, I think she's open and appealing in it in a way that she isn't often in films where she's much more likely to be admirable. And I think that she was obviously very aware of this, and she sought out the odd bad girl role. On Jekyll and Hyde, she persuaded the studio to give her the bad girl role and put Lana Turner in the dud nice girl
that's
role.
A switcheroo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here, I think that it's a role that's clearly crafted around her. And I suspect that one of the strengths of it is that Hitchcock had worked with her on Spellbound, was looking for something else to do with her. So the script is written with her in mind.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I cannot argue any bit of it. She carries the picture. Of course, I love Cary Grant in this role as well. But for me, if you ask me, what's the greatest gift in Notorious, I guess I would say it ultimately works as a powerful love story without conforming to romance movie conventions or cliches. Yes, it's a tense thriller. Yes, it's a spy film. But to me, at its heart, it's a narrative about romantic redemption, about reconciliation in which most of the runtime is focused on the absence of love, the animosity between Devlin and Alicia. You consider their separate motivations in their roles as spies and how these motivations add delicious complexity, Kim, to the love story, as well as the characterizations by Grant and Bergman. You know, the jealousy and resentment by Devlin cause him to be frosty and cutting to Alicia. That makes her more easily gravitate toward Alexander and flourish in her role as an undercover agent. So it's interesting. The irony here is that deep down, he doesn't want her to sleep with Sebastian, of course. But by emotionally pushing her away and maligning her name and reputation, she embraces this call of duty and rubs her intimacy with the enemy in Devlin's face.
Yeah.
But when Alicia stops showing up for their emotional sabotage sessions and suddenly, hey, she's no longer on the park bench, what's going on here? That absence triggers concern, which reignites Devlin's suppressed love. So he arrives in the nick of time to save her. But equally important is that he confesses his jealousy at her bedside. He fesses up to his unwavering love that he's had from the start.
Oh, you love me. Why didn't you tell me before? I know, but I couldn't see straight or think straight. I was a fat-headed guy full of pain. It tore me up not having you. Oh, you love me. Oh, you love me. Long ago, all the time since the beginning.
And that gives the weakened Alicia the strength she needs to escape. It's the supreme payoff for the bulk of the story, which is about 75 minutes, during which love takes a back seat. And what takes the wheel? Well, duty, envy, mistrust, bitterness. So national security interests, defeating the Nazis, reputation buffing may appear to be in the foreground, but they're really the background to me in what is essentially a relationship story. So Notorious demonstrates that the master of suspense, so-called, can stir the heart as deftly as he can quicken the heart. And it endures for me as his finest romantic movie. Well, Kim, do you have any current or forthcoming books? Do you have any projects? Are there events? Or what's on the agenda?
I have a novel out in the spring called Model Actress Whatever, which is a contemporary set fantasy novel with a kind of superhero theme.
Wow. Okay. Is this different from stuff you've done before?
Yes, it's a standalone novel. It's not part of a series, but it's an attempt to have fun with a kind of big widescreen, multiple character, satirical look at celebrity and superpowers.
Oh, that should be fun. And then you mentioned to me before we started the tape rolling, if you will, that you have a follow-up to the ghost story that you wrote last year.
Yeah, I'm a start work. I did a novella, which is out in paperback at the moment, called A Christmas Ghost Story, and I'm about to do a follow-up to that called Mystery at Christmas, which looks at Golden Age whodunits in the way that the ghost story book looks at ghost stories.
Fantastic. When will that land?
Good point. I literally haven't started it.
Okay.
I imagine it'll probably be out at the very end of 2027.
Well, half the work is already done. At least you have the title.
Absolutely.
Well, good luck with that. Look forward to all of those forthcoming books. Exciting times. All right, Mr. Newman, until the next time we speak, may you never run out of champagne. May you never lose the key to the wine cellar.
Thank you very much.
Happy New Year to you, and thanks again for appearing on Cineversary. Enjoying Cineversary? I've chosen to keep our show commercial-free all these years, but as a favor in return, I could really use your help in growing our audience. What you can do to lend a hand is, first, subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to us from. And second, this is even more important, please leave a positive online review and rating on your chosen platform. Ratings and reviews, they make a really big difference. They help make Cineversary discoverable to new listeners. I devote many hours a month putting this show together, and it's an endeavor I love. But I can't do much to expand our audience without your assistance. We've actually only garnered a handful of reviews posted by listeners since our podcast began in 2018. So, can you do me a solid? Can you leave us a favorable review and rating today? Your efforts here are greatly appreciated. A few other quick notes. We have a webpage, cineversary.com, as well as a Facebook page, and I also regularly publish a blog, cineversegroup.com, spelled CINEVERSE group, which serves as the online portal for my weekly private film discussion group that I launched back in 2005. At that site, you can read hundreds of essays on cinema that I've posted and listen to recordings of our film discussion group meetings as well. Lastly, if you want to contact me with a comment, question, or request about this podcast, my blog, or anything else, feel free to email me at cineversegroup@gmail.com. Now, back to the show. Time now for Standing Ovations. This is where we shine the spotlight on a movie, website, book, podcast, event, or other attraction that we think would be of interest to classic film lovers just like you. So, my shout out for January is the upcoming slate of classic theatrical re-releases by Fathom Events. Every year, Fathom brings beloved pictures back to movie theaters for milestone anniversary celebrations, kind of like our show does. And 2026 is no exception. So, they haven't announced much beyond the first 2 months of this year, but so far, here's what's coming back to the big screen. Between January 13th and 15th, so the next few days here, if you're listening to this hot off the press, you can catch Labyrinth for its 40th anniversary. Even more exciting, Lord of the Rings fans can rejoice in seeing the film trilogy this month. You can make plans to visit your cinema between January 16th and 29th to rewatch The Fellowship of the Ring, which marks a 20th anniversary later this year. And between January 17th and 29th, if you want to get reacquainted with The Two Towers and The Return of the King, you got that going for you. And by the way, these are all the preferred extended editions. And while Fathom's national release for these three movies is staggered, select theaters, they're going to be hosting full one-day marathons of all three works back to back to back. Lastly, Pretty in Pink fans can relive the John Hughes glory days as that film returns to screens for its 40th anniversary on February 13th through February 16th. Of course, your mileage may vary here, so check your local theaters for listings and times. Next month, we will take a walk on the wild side with Mr. Travis Bickle and visit the Quite Rotten Big Apple, circa 1976, as we honor the 50th anniversary of Martin Scorsese's magnum opus from that decade, Taxi Driver. Until then, I remain your humble host, Eric Martin, reminding you to butter up that popcorn, live a big screen surround sound life, and cherish those classic movies. Because they're not getting older, they're getting, well, I'm going to let Chicago Bears coach Ben Johnson say it much better than me.
Good, better, bad. Good, better, bad. Never let it rest. Never let it rest. Good, get better. Good, get better. You better get better. You better get better.
Okay, thanks as always for giving us a listen.